Hey, how's it going? It's August 20th, 2022. This is your daily sweet talk. What was I talking about today? Okay. Yeah, Hollywood stuff. If you'll allow me to state the obvious for a minute or 5 minutes, whatever, however long this is. Um, what? Okay, so like, think of an old let's say, okay, let's take the Austin Powers trilogy for example. I'm going to assume the third movie was not a financial success. Maybe it was, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it wasn't. So they just stopped making them after that. After the third Austin Powers movie, they stopped making them because maybe it wasn't making as much money as they wanted it to. They don't do that anymore, though, do they? Let's take Terminator for example. Obviously, a comparable franchise to Austin Powers because they both have time travel, I guess. Um, Terminator now, if a Terminator movie fails, they just wait 5 years, not even 5 years anymore, like 2 years at this point. Like this is how, look at Ghostbusters. They wait like 2 years and then they make another reboot in a different direction. This is just and DC is a great example of this because DC keeps like I guess you could say failing upwards, except not upwards anymore because not all of Warner Brothers is like. But anyway, this is like Hollywood's view of like IPs at this point is just like it was always, for the longest time it's always been like reuse familiar properties, but now it's like even if that fails, they just do it again with a new coat of paint like 2 years later. That's the most egregious thing to me. Like they're still doing the same stuff, but they're doing it like even worse. It's it's very strange, and it's working too. I mean, to an extent, because they're like, oh, people are still like, oh, Terminator, okay, maybe this one will be different. 2 years later, maybe this is the one that will be different, and then it gets just enough good reviews that it's like, okay, we'll keep going. Let's like Halloween for example, or any horror franchise. It's like, okay, or Scream. Yeah, I think Scream, like the last Scream got okay reviews, so it's like, okay, now we're gonna do another one. Like it'll even be advertised like, okay, this is the final time we're gonna reboot this. But then it gets just enough good reviews that they're like, well, now we're going to make a trilogy of final ones. Like they just keep going. And that never used to be the case. Like when they would keep going with these franchise, I don't know. Austin Powers is probably not a good example, but like think of like an old, I mean, Back to the Future, for example. But because Back to the Future had the trilogy and then nothing ever again, except for like all of the extended stuff. Back to the Future, the game, Back to the Future comic books, animated series. So they did have a lot of stuff, but it's never been rebooted because they refused to do that until Bob Gale or Robert Zemeckis dies, and they'll probably, like, it's almost guaranteed they're going to do something, because it's a familiar property. But now, if a movie is a hit at all, they have to do not just a sequel, but it's like, oh man, what was something successful recently that I know I'm stating the obvious with all this, but this is just what I on my mind. What there was one recently. I mean, John Wick, for example. John Wick is like, oh, this was surprisingly enough of a hit. Okay, now it's an entire universe of movies, not just like a trilogy, but now a fourth one, and probably more after that. And of course, now we have the prequel series. It was the same with the Robert Pattinson Batman. Oh, this was before it even came out. Oh, it looked like this was going to be good. So let's not even just make this, but let's have him start writing the sequel. Let's have a Penguin spin-off series. I think there's like 2 spin-off series in the works. Of course, that was all HBO Max stuff, so now that's all up in the air. Who knows about that? Because everything is just going like so full steam ahead. That Hollywood is so full steam ahead these days, more than ever. Just like, yes, green like that, especially Warner Brothers, which is probably why they're in the position now they're in. I don't know. I'm not trying to talk like I know what I'm talking about here, but just like it's just crazy what's going on with all that stuff. I don't know. That's what I was talking about today. Okay. Anyway, bye.